Let's see if we're actually streaming.
4, 1.
I didn't put in the stream key. Hey, it's working.
4.
It's good to know, YouTube.
2, 3.
I can just stream without entering a new stream key somehow, magically on YouTube.
4.
I do like YouTube for streaming. I'll say that.
3, 4.
This is the Brother Seamus Show. I'm your Brother Seamus.
3,
I
4, and 1.
firmly believe that we should have more mental health cops. But we'll get back to that. Let me get something fun going here. This is how we start off the show with the... We're going to boogie down, people. If you're holding a smartphone in your hand,
And a 4, and a 1, and a
place
2,
it
and a 3,
firmly over your eyeball or in your armpit or belly button.
There we go. 1.
Whatever causes your phone to unlock.
3.
Unlock your phone and
4.
call 509-676-6032.
4.
This is the Brother Seamus Show. I am
2,
your Brother Seamus.
3.
And
4.
no, I'm not an Irish monk.
2, 3.
Although I think
4,
it's...
1, 2.
I think it would be a cool job, kind of, to be an Irish monk. Kind of a cool job.
3, 4, and 1.
It'd be pretty,
3, and 4,
you know, especially if you're out away from people, just doing farming, meditating. That'd be pretty cool.
And a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4, and a 1.
I could never be a real monk because
And a 2.
I feel like they wouldn't let me bring my ganja, you know? And I'm just being honest.
And a 4, and a 1.
I could be a monk in like a new,
That's right.
you know, Church of the Latter-day Dude or something like that.
1,
Which in fact,
2, 3, 4.
to which in
1,
fact I belong.
2, 3,
I belong to the
4,
Church of the Latter-day Dude.
2, 3, 4.
And that's part of why I call myself
2,
Brother Seamus. It doesn't really matter who I
4,
am.
1, 2, 3.
What matters is that you pick up that smartphone
2,
device or you
3.
go over to your table
1, and a 2, and a 3.
by the window
And a 1, and a 2, and a 3.
and you pick up that old analog device, right? Remember that thing? These things were actually comfortable. And give us a call, 509. And if you're wondering, that's Walla Walla, Washington. We're coming at you live on Q109 out of Walla Walla, Washington. But you can watch us probably most easily on YouTube. Q109 out of Walla Walla, Washington is
2,
hardcore
4, 1.
underground pirate
2,
radio. And so
3,
if you don't have the special
4,
transducer
1,
receiver, you can't really
2,
pick it up.
3, 4.
But that's okay because
2,
because
2,
we're right here on YouTube with you.
4, 1, 2.
I've had the best luck streaming on YouTube. I haven't tried Twitch yet. I'm going to try Twitch in the future. Let's say hi to that's Coffee by Design. Bigfoot is here today. Coffee by Design. Bigfoot, I believe, hails from Portland, Maine. And Bigfoot uses a transporter beam, just like on Star Trek, but Bigfoot adjusts the beam so that he, she, they, them, Z live in a liminal space
3, 4.
outside the window of our studios here in
4.
Walla Walla, Washington. I realize my signal's a little hot right now. I'm seeing the red bar.
1,
So I'm going to turn
3, 4.
I'm going to bring the
1.
I'm going to bring
2,
the track, the dancing
4.
track down just a little. I'm not ready to stop dancing just yet.
3, 4.
I know I haven't technically danced yet, but I did. I sort of went up and down on the balls of my feet a little tiny bit when I was over there turning on the fog machine.
3 and a 4 and a 1
So that counts.
and a 2.
We've got a vocal loop going today. A vocal loop I just baked. It sounds like this.
And a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
So I make that on a ditto, a ditto looper.
Go.
Ditto looper looping
1,
pedal.
2, 3,
And
4.
I'll see if I can lift it up for you. I'll show you.
2.
This is
3,
the old Ditto. It does not have
4,
auto quantize,
1,
so my loops
2,
don't stitch
3,
together exactly
4,
right at the end. But
1,
it's
2,
just a Ditto pedal. It's
3,
just got 2 buttons and
4,
2 knobs, and I
1,
love it.
2,
It's real simple.
3.
It's good for us
4,
dummies.
1, 2,
And you
3,
can lay it down as many
4,
tracks as you want.
1 and a 2 and a 3 and a
But if you
4
make
and
a
1 and a 2
mistake
and a 3
and you want to delete a track, you better delete it right away, because once you add another layer, it's cooked in all the way. So that's the Ditto pedal. We also got, this is just a beat I programmed earlier. This is also easy for dummies. It's a program called Fruity Loops. And it looks like this. Even more like that. So, super simple. You open it, open a file, or I think it opens automatically, and it gives you like 4 channels pre-populated with instruments. And then wherever you want, like here, they give you an 808 kick drum that's always on top. I always throw in a fruity kick drum, and the way you do it is you just right-click on the instrument and say Insert, and you can choose from all these pre-installed instruments, synthesizers, and everything. And wherever you click, it puts a beat down. So like this is a bass guitar. If I just hold down the left button, so this is going to sound terrible, but you'll get a sense of how easy it is. So that's all bass, and I don't want that much bass. Now I'm going to right click, and I got rid of it. So that's Fruity Loops. You can change your beats. I tend to do my vocal loops at 100 beats per minute naturally, so I program Fruity Loops to be 100 beats per minute. You can just change it right up there, but you can go much faster if you wanted. Let's take her up. You want to get some of that EDM going? You can kind of bring it up there. Shee-wee! You can get with it, people, if you want to dance. This is the Brother Seamus show. This is a call-in show, people. So you should probably give us a call. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's right. Bigfoot's getting after it.
4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 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 and 1 and 2.
ladies and gentlemen. I apologize. Coffee by Design, Bigfoot. I appreciate you keeping the groove going. It's tough running a show when you've got people coming to your door, neighbors wanting to get caught up. But that's okay. We have time for that on the Brother Seamus show because we don't usually get any calls. That's the secret. The dirty, it's not really dirty. The dark secret, it's not really dark either. So yeah, people don't really call. Oh, that's a weird effect. I kind of like that a little bit. It gives me zombie eyes. We do have some serious homework to do on this show. I realize we've been on the air for 15 minutes and we haven't really done anything. So if you want to skip ahead. Oh, I forgot to turn my beats back down. This is 130 beats per minute. That is too much for me, people. Let's turn it down. Let's go back. Well, that was 137 beats per minute. Let's turn it back down to 100. I like that better. It's a little better for, a little better for a person of a certain age. I'm not saying I'm old. Let me move my title around. I'm always in a quandary with the old title here. Maybe I put it right in the middle. I don't want to disrupt the closed captioning. But I don't like it up high either because then I hit my head on it. I don't like that. I'm going to put it right under my chin. Let's try that for a minute. So this is the Brother Seamus show, as you can tell. And we're about 15 minutes in, and I haven't really covered any important topics. So I guess I'll pause. I'll pause the beats, and I'll even be serious and turn off the filter so we can do our homework. Once homework is done, well, that's not bad. That's a heavy chroma key filter right there with sharpen. Sharpen is turned all the way up. Today's homework is pretty straightforward, but you can go in a lot of directions with this homework. So what I want to do is I want to pull up my article, and I want to show you how I look for fake news, and I hope it will help you. Let's see here. That's too big, isn't it? Let's make that normal size for the normal people. Not that being normal's that great. It's just a statistical thing. All right, so here's an article that appeared in the Dispatch. Now, your first question should always be, is that a real newspaper? And I'm going to say I'm 80% certain that it is a real newspaper. But you may come to a different conclusion. I'm just going to show you what I do. So before I look into the paper, I look at the article that I'm reading. Now, this article, actually pretty good article for other reasons, and I'm going to mainly use it today to show you how I look for fake news. Because mainly the way fake news finds you is through Facebook knowing you, Facebook knowing what you're susceptible to, and then the people that are generating the fake news who usually want to sell you something. It's not that they're always taking over the world, but they want something that's going to catch your eyeball, keep you engaged, so then they can sell you their snake oil or whatever it is. Now, not everything they're selling is bad, but manipulating you through stories that are upsetting, because that seems to be the trick on Facebook. If you can upset people, they'll keep reading, okay? And if you keep reading, what happens? Well, little Marky Z makes more money. That's what happens, because your eyeballs are on the screen. They can put more ads on the screen. So everybody's fighting for your eyes is what it comes down to. Including me. I'm trying to get you to watch this show. And I can advertise, and I will advertise on Facebook to get you to watch this show. But mainly what I want you to take away from this show is that we should not let Facebook do that. I shouldn't be able to find your eyeballs that easily unless I can prove I'm not going to harm society by lying to you. Now, you may not believe me, and that's okay, but I'll still share this. I'm gonna share this information with you. I do have a PhD in psychology, and I'm a licensed psychologist. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that just because part of the skill set of being a psychologist is that you have to learn to wade through research and try to figure out what is really legit research, what really helps people. And then they test us and stuff. So I'm not a specialist in fake news, but there are some easy giveaways. For example, I'd give them a point just for naming the journal up here. If this is a fake paper, it's a bold name to choose and a big title. This is a good sign right here. Guy Lucas wrote the article. Paxton Media Group. Now here I would take away a point for two reasons. One, is it Guy Lewis Paxton Media Group or is it Guy Lucas Paxton Media Group? And none of this is linkable. Now I'm not mad at Guy. Guy didn't build the website, I doubt. And most newspapers, most local papers, if that's what this is, are so strapped for cash they can barely afford to operate, which is a shame. And that should not be the case. Quality local journalism should be publicly funded, at least in part, in some sort of strategic partnership to keep the community papers open. That's my 2 cents. Hey, guess what? Sometimes I give out my 2 cents on this program. That's the joy of doing my own show. I get to talk as much as I want. And I like it. It's fun. But I also get sick of hearing myself talk, so that's why sometimes I bring in the beats, just because it gets boring. So what you do is you put this in the back of your head. Okay, we're dealing with the dispatch. We'll dig into that in a minute. Guy Lucas is our journalist. We should be able to link on him and send him or her an email and ask, hey, if you really thought this was fake, you might say, hey, Guy, who have you worked for before? Can I see some of your other work? Of course, you could Google Guy Lucas, journalist. I think this is out of North Carolina, if I remember right. We'll find out in a second. But you'd say, hey, Guy, are you real or are you fake? And Guy would probably not email you back if you ask that, but if you said, hey, I'm just trying to make sure that you're not on some sort of George Soros mailing list or what have you. And then if you were really serious, you could probably go try to meet the journalist and just ask them questions like, where did you come from? Who have you written for? Find out if it's a real person. Now, most people aren't going to go to that length. But if they identify themselves and they are a real person that you can find, that makes the whole operation a little bit more believable, as opposed to they're just some shell corporation that puts out articles to try to swing public opinion. Okay, so far we're on track. I'm not thrilled that I can't link to the author, but that's okay. So this article is about Laura Steele, Thomasville woman, and she went to trial because of the January 6th thing. She was a former High Point police officer, convicted last week on multiple charges, including felonies, obstructing, blah, blah, blah. So Laura, and this is not our today's topic, But I think Laura was one among many that was misled by Facebook and harmed by Facebook, because now Laura is facing some kind of sentencing. Now, the point of this article was saying that Laura should have taken, with the help of her attorney, a plea deal. But she did not take a plea deal, as her brother did, who then received, even though he did more, according to this juror, he got a lesser sentence. So that's a whole different wormhole. Having good legal counsel is critical. But maybe Laura refused a plea deal, and people do that sometimes. They get stubborn. But it probably was not in her best interest. However, here, as far as whether this is real or fake, there's a couple good things here. We've identified the source, C-SPAN founder Brian Lamb. So Guy's writing an article about an interview. Guy Lucas is writing an article about an interview done by Brian Lamb at C-SPAN. And if you don't know C-SPAN or you think it's evil, they're basically public access TV for Congress and government in other ways. They're probably the most bland source of news you could find in the world. And you know what? Bland is good. C-SPAN is good. They try to, and I feel like they succeed mostly, but they try to not give any commentary. Like they're the opposite of Fox News. But yeah, pretty dry, pretty boring. But, facts should be dry, I think. Facts are best served dry, not hyped up. Another problem I'm seeing with this page, and this doesn't make them any less legit. In fact, it might make them more legit, as there's all kinds of pop-up ads and crap all over this page. Hard to get away from. You can click them to make them go away. This one here tricks you into clicking continue. Now, this could be a sign of a shitty, cheap, fake website, but I think it's really, sadly, just a sign that newspapers don't get enough funding. And so they have to resort to crap like this. So we'll go past the crypto, major crypto tokens trading higher. All right, so C-SPAN reporter named Brian Lamb, mark that down in your copybooks, does an interview, and I think it's just audio, talked to a juror who they're calling Ellen. We don't know if that's Ellen's real name. They did not identify Ellen, so that can put you on alert. It doesn't mean it's fake news. And then you say, well, why won't Ellen identify herself? Well, she was a juror in a January 6th case, and a lot of jurors get threatened, sadly. The jurors are just regular people. You go around threatening jurors, that's a sign you're slipping in the wrong direction. Leave the jurors alone. So basically what Ellen said is that they were sympathetic to most of the January 6th people, but if you read the whole article, she was critical of the defense that the people that got pulled in to the January 6th thing, some of it's their fault. They're adults. They made their own choices, right? But I think Facebook had undue influence on them vis-a-vis a mass delusional syndrome. In other words, I think there are some people that were so bombarded by Facebook, and I believe they should sue Facebook. In fact, I think some of them are, that they end up getting in harm's way because they were lied to so effectively. This is the bottom line of all this. They were lied to so effectively. And we all know this. If you're in the right state of mind or the wrong state of mind, you can be really easily lied to. And that's not good. That's not good at all. But let's get back to our article here. This juror, interviewed by C-SPAN reporter Brian Lamb, said that she did not believe this woman who was getting convicted, Ms. Steele, former police officer from Thompson or Thomasville. Laura Steele, there's her picture. Probably not her best picture, but hey, who am I to judge? I'm just some yahoo sitting at a damn computer. That's what I am. So anyway, Ellen explains that only two of the 12 jurors were excuse me, I was trying to suppress a cough. It got away from me. That the jurors were actually not thinking they were going to convict, but there were mountains of evidence, and that's the critical thing. Evidence convinces jurors of things. So keep that in mind when the former president goes to trial, and I know that's an upsetting idea for a lot of you, but they have to put on evidence. That's why the voter fraud stuff never moved forward. You have to put on evidence, and they just couldn't do it. So we'll see if the district attorney can do it or not, but that's our system, right? It's almost, it's kind of guided by science. Science is the same way. Like right now, we're looking at this article to decide whether this is real or fake. Is there really someone codenamed Ellen who was a juror? Did these things really happen? Well, we can talk to Brian Lamb because he was named, right? And we can talk to the guy that wrote this. So this is basically an article about an interview. Two different journalists we can talk to. They might let us talk to Ellen. Ellen probably wants her identity to be kept safe, but if there was a safe way for him or her to talk, they might be willing. We're really going down the rabbit hole, but I want to show you that you can connect this article to actual humans that you can probably email, and they may get back to you and actually say, hey, what's going on? You can also go to the court, and you can say, I'm doing research on Laura Lee Steele, age 54, as of April 6, 2023. I would like to request a transcript of her court case. And you could read about it. Probably will confirm a lot of what's being said in this article. At the end of the day, this article is really about a juror saying that Laura and others did not get good representation. And in this case, Laura's brother, Graydon, took a plea deal. And even though he did more, he engaged in more illegal acts, apparently, according to this, he got less time. And that's pretty unfortunate. I think the bigger issue is people got so sucked into this January 6th thing that they got effed over. And I think Facebook is at least partially to blame. Okay. Do we think this is fake news or real news? I would say pretty clearly this is real news because we got a real reporter with, I forgot to show you, real reporter, and you go to the Contact Us page, that real reporter has a title, news editor, has a phone number, and an actual email. Now, one negative point, the emails of a lot of these people that work there are different. HPE News, Courier Tribune, the Times News, Now, I don't necessarily think that means they're not legit. I think that all these small papers maybe got glued together, and so these people probably came from other papers. But it looks like the Times News is the main one, but Guy Lucas writes for HPE News. So this helps. This helps. If you see they have an email and a phone number, you're getting closer to a real person. A lot of the fake articles that I've seen, you can't really track down the reporter, or you can't track down the paper. Now, one negative here, I'll say to you at the Dispatch, if you're listening, not negative, but some notes here. If I click About Us, if I'm a researcher and I'm serious, and your About Us page doesn't exist, that's not great. Now, here's the thing. I'm terrible at maintaining my own website. So the Contact Us page works. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to bother Guy unless he wants to be on my show. Maybe I should email him right now while we're talking and see if he wants to be on my show. Guy Lucas, news editor. Should I call him? All right, I'm going to call him. Let's see what happens. I've never done a call out on this show, so bear with me. I'm going to switch back to my ugly mug so you guys can hear. You can stare at me while I attempt to make a phone call. I probably I don't think he's going to pick up. And that's okay. Let's see. How do I call? How do I call? Enter a number, it says. Well, my goodness. Let's put a 1 in front of it. Why don't we? Let's see if it works. Oh, you know what? I have to turn down my beats before I do that, because otherwise all Brian's going to hear is this. Guy Lucas. I like that name. Famous filmmaker from Canada named Guy. Guy Madden. He does some kooky movies, man. They're pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Where'd my phone go? There it is. Okay, the number is in there. I think I can call this guy and I want to do this just in case. Oh, that's okay. That's going. All right, here we go. Guy, I'd like to speak to Guy, please. Guy Lucas. I'd prefer to get voicemail because I don't want to put him on the spot.
This is Guy Lucas. I'm not available right now, but if you will leave your name and number, I will call you back as soon as I can.
Hi, Guy. My name is Sean Kenny, and I do a little YouTube call-in show called the Brother Seamus Show. We're actually streaming live right now. And I was hoping I would get your voicemail because I didn't want to put you on the air without your permission. But FYI, this is going out live and being recorded. My question is, I'm doing a story on how to detect fake news from real news. And I just randomly pulled up an article written by you, well, semi-randomly, about a woman being charged, or convicted rather, at the at trial for the January 6th situation. And you seem like a real journalist, and so I'm trying to teach folks how can you tell when you're getting an article by a real journalist versus a place that just puts out disinformation. So anyway, that's what it's about. Give me a call back anytime you want, 509-676-6032. If you'd like to be on my show as a phone guest, that would be a blast, but no pressure. I'm just showing folks how to research journalists and journalism so that they don't get tricked so easily. All right, have a good one. Thanks for the article, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, that was pretty awkward. But maybe maybe it'll make him laugh, or he'll just be annoyed, and he'll be like, who's this fucking dingus? I don't usually drop F-bombs. I don't usually drop F-bombs, but sometimes they slip out. So maybe Guy will give us a call. It's not a big deal. The point is, Guy exists in the world in a way that he can be reached. It's kind of nice to get a voicemail. It seems so old-fashioned, but I got to hear his voice, and yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm just resizing I'm going to make it look like my shirt. Says the Brother Seamus Show. 509-676-6032. I think that kind of covers it. Oh, I forgot to say, so back to how do you know it's even a real paper? I kind of skipped this part. The dispatch, right? My biggest criticism is it doesn't tell us where they are, and they should at least have an address here, I think. Good news is there is an address in the contact us, which is more important probably. And so we go to the bottom. Oh no, the address isn't here. But there sure is a pop-up ad here. Poor newspapers. We just don't treat them right. How did I find out they were in North Carolina? I think I did local weather. So if I don't see good information in the about section, I go poking around. Let's see. So Lexington, North Carolina, we must assume that's where this paper is. My guess is that these journalists have to write for papers all over the country just to stitch together a living. I don't know if that's true. That might be something Guy can answer. But to be a working journalist, it's almost like, to me, it seems like you almost have to do what musicians do, where you just gig, you know. You get out there and gig, baby. It's going to be 82 in Lexington, although is this right now? Oh, I guess it is, yes. That's pretty nice. Kind of hot for me. Up here in Walla Walla, Washington, we keep it cooler. Look at that. It's going to go down to a cool 70. Ooh, that's perfect. Mid to low 60s for sleep, I think is perfect. Assuming you're not in a concrete jungle and that holds all the heat in. This is the Brother Seamus Show. We can talk about media literacy. That's kind of what this is about today. It's like, how do I know that what this person reported is accurate? Oh, I forgot the third step in this one. So we check the paper out. The dispatch seems legit. They don't have an about section. This article has a writer or journalist you can call and mentions another journalist by name. That would be my final step in checking this. C-SPAN is well known. Even if you don't watch C-SPAN, it's been around forever. It's well known. Brian Lamb, I took the liberty of already looking this up. Brian Lamb's pretty well known. All you got to do is pop his name in there. Now, I didn't see this particular interview. And C-SPAN's video library doesn't seem to give me results for the audio only, or it hasn't been posted yet. But if it hadn't been posted yet, how did Mr. Lucas get access to it? So, point is, I made a really bad point there. We go from Mr. Lucas's article to C-SPAN, which is well known. You can read all about C-SPAN. It's been around forever. It's funded through, I think, the big cable companies. It's public access TV, I think, is the best way to say it, for the country. And they cover Congress. If you're ever having trouble sleeping, watch late night congressional sessions. It's no offense to C-SPAN. It's good that they show it. They should always show it. C-SPAN gives us a perfect baseline for transparency. You have to show Congress. When Congress is working, we must see it. Now, of course, things happen outside the chamber, but we must see Congress in action. Okay, C-SPAN is a wonderful source. So the fact that Guy referenced an interview, it sounds like it was an audio-only interview. Let's take a look here. It was mainly about how the January 6th folks did not get good defense in many cases, which is sad. Yeah, here. The juror, a longtime C-SPAN employee. Oh, that's why they didn't want to name her as well. Probably. She's one of their own employees. who was not identified by Lamb except as Ellen, in the audio posted. Oh, my God, there's a link to it. Oh, there's a link.
Since January the 6th, 2021,
There
more
it
than
is.
1,000 defendants have been arrested in nearly all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Those arrested have been charged with a long list of felonies and misdemeanors, including assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers or employees of the U.S. Capitol.
I did not know that link was there. I'm so happy. I'm going to listen to a little bit more of it. It looks like it's long, so we're not going to do the whole thing. Somewhere in this audio is the interview with Ellen. And some people say, well, she won't give her last name, so she must be fake. Well, not necessarily. If you have a good reason to withhold your name, and some people just don't want their name in the news. And these days, guess what happens? You get threatened. Also, the journalists at C-SPAN may have some intel about Ellen that could confirm his or her identity. So let's listen to a little bit more.
Over 518 individuals have already pled guilty to a number of offenses. Over 60 people have been found guilty at contested trials. A just completed Oath Keepers trial found defendants guilty of both felonies and misdemeanors. To try and understand more about the judicial trial process, we asked a juror on this recent trial to tell us her observations. Ellen, you just sat on a jury for what kind of a case?
This was a federal criminal trial in U.S. District Court here in Washington. 6 of the people related to the Oath Keepers who were accused of crimes on January 6th were on trial together in one trial.
So we're going to talk about lots of things that happened during this time and how you were selected. But what's your overall view, this just 2 days after the decisions were made, about the whole experience?
As a person who has never served on a jury before, other than a grand jury, but not at a trial jury, it was overwhelming to go through this with very little preparation and to have to be able to take in so much information. It was 6 trials in one. Some of the defendants had almost nothing to do with the others. And to be able to figure out a way to process this and deal with it, and then the dynamics of dealing with a jury, all brand new, all with almost no preparation, like, here, you're it, sit down, let's go, we're starting in 5 minutes. That's how much preparation we had. And I'm just blown away by the amount of responsibility they put on 12 random people to be the arbiters of the fate of some individuals. It just boggles my mind, the amount of responsibility they put on you with no preparation.
What did you decide?
You mean the verdicts?
Yeah.
We had 34 counts against 6 different people. Some of the counts were against all of them. Some people were charged with 1 count. Some people were charged with a few. Overwhelmingly, we mostly found everyone, 4 of the defendants were found guilty of all their charges, which could have been up to 7 against each of them. One of the defendants was only found guilty of 1 charge, and then we were hung on one of his charges. And then another defendant we found guilty of 2 of his charges, and he was cleared of a few others. It's hard to just remember this. We weren't allowed to take our notes with us when we left. I have a notebook full of information. So I'd say the majority were found guilty of their crimes, except for two of them.
What kind of people were among the defendants?
If you're just joining us, this is the Brother Seamus Show. We're playing audio from an interview by a C-SPAN journalist named Brian. Let me make sure I'm getting the name right. Brian Lamb on C-SPAN is interviewing a juror that just goes by the name Ellen. Now, in this article, it says the juror is a longtime C-SPAN employee. I think they just really, out of a courtesy to Ellen, don't want to put her name out there, which I agree, and I'm hoping that Ellen's just a code name. But that could make you suspicious. Like, okay, they won't say who this person's name is. But then what makes it way less suspicious is you get to listen to the interview and hear for yourself the way this person talks. Does this person, and just ask yourself, does this person sound like a serial liar? I don't think so. You can't know 100,000% for sure on anybody. Anybody could be lying to you. I could be lying to you right now. All this could be made up. This whole interview here with Brian, in the article written by Guy over there at the Dispatch that doesn't have any information in their About section. That's okay. I'm not mad at you, Dispatch. I know you're doing the best you can with what you got. We need more local journalism, people. Support local media. I know public access TV is boring if you still have one, but you know what it is? It's TV owned by you. You own it. And you can go be on TV anytime you want. In fact, I encourage you to do this. I think if we had more community discussions about things like Donald Trump, we wouldn't be at each other's throats quite so much. But let's not get sidetracked. Let's get back to the story. So Brian's doing a nice interview here with a juror named Ellen, we think, codenamed Ellen. Ellen was at Laura Steele's trial. Ellen feels bad for some of the defendants who maybe did not get the best legal representation, according to Ellen. But let's listen in. Brian just asked her what types of people were the January 6th defendants. And here comes Ellen's answer.
What did you see?
I saw people who traveled here from out of state. All of them are from out of state, or not from Washington, D.C., and who didn't understand very much about our city, our laws, our government. As far as they weren't even from big cities. These were people from living on farms and rural places, most of them, who had, I think, no concept of Washington, D.C. And there were just a variety of people. One was a former, military veteran. I mean, two of them are related to other defendants from other cases. One was one was a sister of someone else who was in a different trial, and one was the wife of someone who was in a different trial. And then there was a married couple. And then there was a young man who came with his relatives, but ended up alone in the Capitol without his relatives during the insurrection.
How long did the jury deliberate?
It was 6 days. We were given the case on a Friday, 30 minutes before we were about to be released, so I don't count that. After that, we sat for 6 days. Yeah.
What was the hardest part of making a decision?
I'd say the absolute hardest part is that everyone came to this jury with their own beliefs, their own lives, their own thoughts, their own experiences. And there were several people in the jury who felt they will never convict somebody because of something, despite nothing to do with any of the facts of the trial, just because of their own experiences or who they were. They were bringing sympathy to certain defendants. And the difficulty was following the law. With a group of 12 people, we had an attorney. I was able to understand a lot was going on. A few of us were able to really dig into it. We had 45 pages of jury instructions from the judge, 45 pages that we had to understand. And it's not written for the average public. It's above that. It's very legalese. And fortunately, we had a lawyer on the jury, and he was able to take a 4-page description of one count and say, look at this paragraph. you know, and he was helping to guide people who you couldn't take it all in and understand what we were supposed to do. It went on and on and on. And I think the problem is you take 12 random citizens of a city or a state and you expect them to understand law and understand legal terms and understand so much more than I think a lot of people are able to grasp. And you have to come to a decision with these people who keep saying the same thing over and over again. You know, that's not this, because they don't know the definition of this word. It's what they assume it means. It was very challenging.
Well, what was your biggest personal surprise that you did? Not what anybody else did, but when you made your own decisions and your own involvement in the deliberations?
Well, as I've mentioned to you, I haven't really slept for 6 weeks because I basically spent a lot of the times at night waking up and thinking of, this is going to be my opening argument today and this is going to be my closing argument. And often every day I walked in and I said, can I talk about this thing? And they'd say yes. And then I basically made a speech because I would think about different ways to explain it when we weren't agreed on something.
Where would you do that, by the way? Physically, where would you do that speech, your speech?
Oh, when the jury started in the morning, and we didn't know what we were starting, and I'd say, I'd like to address this defendant. And I would have thought of something that hadn't been brought up before, like take this and think about this and put yourself, and the attorney on the jury and I were kind of tag teaming, but I felt like people can't think outside of what they believe, and some people weren't paying attention to the whole trial and didn't understand a lot of what had happened. So it was like trying to explain to people in layman's terms what we're talking about. Forget the legal stuff. This is what it means. And I had no idea I was able to do that, but I think it helped because there were many counts where we started out maybe 1 or 2 to 10, and we brought the other 10 along. I told the jury, if you haven't seen the movie 12 Angry Men, which I happen to remember from last century, you got to watch it. And I didn't really remember it, but I knew that somebody turned 11 other people his way. And, I think it's probably similar.
When you were called initially to have to come to the courthouse and be part of the selection process, what had been your attitude about January the 6th?
I was horrified. I mean, as a citizen of this city, as a citizen of this country, as someone who, worked for C-SPAN for 32 years, that wasn't the main thing, but I was personally around the Capitol for a long time. I thought it was horrendous. I thought it was just horrible. It was devastating.
Were you on a side? Did you think one side or the other was right or wrong?
On January 6th?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing. People to this day think that the January 6th thing was not what it's portrayed as being. Okay.
I kind of think it was bad, and that our Capitol was attacked, policemen were attacked, people were killed, people were hurt.
So let's stop right there real quick. It's an interesting line of questioning, and I think Brian's trying to address a really important topic, which is a lot of people really don't believe that what happened on January 6th was an assault on the Capitol. I think Ellen's basically saying, I can't help but believe that's what it was because the facts bear that out. But prior to that, she was getting into something about how hard it is to be on a jury, and I agree with that, having been on a jury. And that there was so much information to take in, and the people being charged maybe didn't fully understand even what they were being charged with. And she made it a point to say they didn't seem to understand the laws of the city, and that they were, kind of country mouse versus city mouse. And I think that's important because it gets at the idea that, the way things are done back home may not be the way it's done over here in the city or whatever. And I think she's feeling like, there's the odds are stacked against these folks. They don't have a ton of money. They don't have a ton of legal resources. Makes me wonder, why didn't Mr. Trump pony up some legal money for them? He keeps asking for money for himself, but no money for them, right? Yeah, I know. He said he was going to pay for some stuff, but he really, proof's in the pudding, right? He didn't pony up. So we could continue on with this. We're already at an hour, and I really wasted a lot of time today, so I don't think we can do the whole hour and 45-minute interview. But the point is, the article we looked up and we read about Laura Steele seems to be a legitimate article with legitimate journalists looking into it. You don't have to agree with them, right? We're not looking for only journalists we agree with. Journalists are journalists, right? The goal is to get out there as much factual information as they can about what happened so you can make an informed decision. And it's getting harder and harder to keep journalism alive because capitalism kind of likes a little bit of fake journalism, right? You make more money if you can get people scared about something. And so we're veering into this. It's like a ditch on the side of the road. From the point of view of a psychologist, I feel like the vehicle is going off the road and is in danger of rolling over. And I think it's because Facebook is so dangerous. And I don't think we know how dangerous it is. I don't think we realize how dangerous it is. But I think it's super dangerous.
That's the side I'm on. It was a really bad thing.
The reason I ask you that is as you know, we've known each other for 32 years, worked together. It was a happenstance that I was in that court watching the trial. I had no idea that you were going to be there.
Right.
But as I watched the jury being selected, there were a number of jurors that acted like they knew nothing about January the 6th. They live in D.C.,
right.
That they hadn't paid attention to any of it, that they didn't have any strong views of it. So that's why I asked you that question. So if you came in with some very strong views before it even started.
Well, I came in with an open mind, though. I didn't know who the defendants were. They could have been people just sightseeing. I didn't know who the defendants were in the case. We weren't told anything when we were going through a week of jury selection. So I was not a fan of January 6th, but I wanted to give these people every opportunity to prove that not that they have to prove their innocence, but to explain why they were there. I assume they were there. I'm sure there are people maybe just walking through the Capitol, just sightseeing, I mentioned this to the jury many times, and one of the key pieces of video of our defendants in a group discussing their plan prior to going in, a woman walked by with a baby carriage. I'll never forget that. So, obviously if she was on trial, it would be like, so she's walking by with a baby carriage, you know what I mean? I had an open mind about the case, but I had, feelings about January 6th.
What was life like being a juror? What was, I'm not talking about the substance of the case. What were the 6 weeks like?
Well, let's stop there since we got to start wrapping up and we got to play some more beats. But I really like what the juror was saying there was that she did not assume that any of these people were guilty. She did not like what happened on January 6th, and you don't have to like what happened on January 6th to give somebody a fair trial. So what I think we have here today with Guy Lucas's article about Laura Steele, based on an interview given by Brian Lamb, you can track these things down. I don't know if Ellen would want to talk to you personally, but if you're really convinced that all this stuff is fake news, you really got to hone your skills at snooping your way through it. Another thing you can do. I try to leave you with good ideas that you don't have to take it from me. Like, let's say, for example, and this, I don't think this trial would be one, but let's say you think all of this is fake. All right, well, get in your car, drive to the courthouse, or better yet, get online, find where the trial was. You've got her name. It might take a minute to track down who you need to talk to, but call the courthouse and say, how do I get a transcript? They might even have it on their website. It's not that hard. I didn't really pay attention to where the, I feel like I didn't do my homework properly. Let's track down where this was. It was in the paper from North Carolina. And Laura, a Thomasville woman. Oh, wait, her trial was in D.C., I'm sure. Okay, so you'd have to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm sure you can find out pretty easily where it happened. And it was a big trial, 6 members of the Oath Keepers, including Laura Steele and her brother Graydon Young. So if you Google Laura Steele and Graydon Young trial, you'll find out where it is. I'm sure they have a website, and I'm sure you can get a transcript. So you could read, now I know most people aren't going to do this, but you could read about what Ellen was just telling us, right? Ellen was just telling us about the trial upon which she sat. She also happened to be an employee of C-SPAN. You can try to make hay out of that if you want, but it happens. I'm assuming a lot of people that work for C-SPAN live in Washington, D.C., since that's one of the main things they cover. Point is, you can read the trial. You can see if you agree with Ellen, the juror. The results will be there for everyone to see. This is how you chase down you anchor yourself to reality this way. And what Facebook does, unfortunately, is it tries to loosen your bond with reality. They try to loosen your bond in a way where kind of wild speculation, if it's said in the right way to the right person who's in the right mood, it can be very convincing. It has what we psychologists like to call face value, which means, oh, it looks good on its face, right? It sounds right. And sometimes face value is accurate, but not all the time. Especially if you're charged up, right? And we're seeing a lot of evidence now, and I know this will make some of you mad, but we're seeing a lot of evidence that Fox News engaged in deliberate hyping of ideas that were known to them to be false. In other words, all that stuff about voter fraud. It was investigated. Bill Barr's people went looking, and they looked hard. They didn't find anything. But Fox News decided to cover that story, and you all know this already anyway. So Fox News really pushed people into believing that actual fraud had occurred, and I think that set them up to attack the Capitol. That, among many other things. So, just keep that in your head, that this idea of fake news, it really all comes down to evidence. Do you have evidence that you can take to trial? Ms. Steele got convicted, 54-year-old woman. She's probably going to, especially since she didn't get a plea deal, Ms. Steele's probably looking at, I don't know, 7 or 8 years maybe, based on what the other sentences have been. I'd guess at least 2 or 3 years in prison at age 54 is not where you want to be. And it is partially her fault. She chose to go there and chose to break the law. Ignorance of the law is no defense. However, it's not all on her. She got swept up in something. I think she was unable to filter out what was fake and what was real. Not because a lack of intelligence. It's not about IQ. It's about, are you vulnerable to the message? And Facebook is so good at putting the message out there. They're so good that I'm going to take you to a screen here. I'm delaying. they're so good at it that I made them a special screen. Oh, there we go. Here's what I'm looking for. The amygdala, people. The part of your brain that gets tricked by Facebook is right here. That little, in this image it's purple. I assume it's not purple in real life. It's part of your limbic system, which is kind of the umbrella term for, let's say, the emotional control center. The amygdala seems largely responsible for threat assessment. So should you be scared, first they scare you, then they make you angry. Because now you're scared, you don't want to be scared, you have to fight back. So if you keep telling somebody a lie, pretty soon it sinks in. And it sinks in right through this door right here, down there in the amygdala. But that's not what I was trying to show you. There's my... Oh, Facebook is the most dangerous lie machine ever invented. I believe that's the God's honest truth. I feel like we are just beginning to realize just how powerful Facebook is. And I think they destroy the truth by causing a form of mass delusion syndrome, which I thought I had a card for. Facebook causing mass delusion. I didn't say syndrome on this one, but you get the idea. So what do? Well, do your research for real. Look up if you read an article and you're not sure you believe it, look up the author. See if that author has been an author for a while. Send that author an email, that journalist. Look at some of their work. It's hard. People say, oh, I did my research. Well, it's very hard to disentangle what's true and what's fake. One way you do is you anchor it to real people. You anchor it to real news organizations that have been around a while. You track down the people named in the article to see where they're at. A lot of fake news will break down when you start tracking like that. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that. So let me offer you another suggestion. Out of the kindness of my heart, if you call our number, where did our number go? That's the real question. 509 676 6032. Pick up your smart device, hold it firmly to the tip of your nose to unlink the biometric sensor. That's fake news right there. Don't put it on your nose. Give us a call, and if you have a legit article that you're not sure if it's true, call us. We'll look at it. We'll look at it together. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down. We might disagree. Like, you might end up thinking it's real or fake, and I might think the opposite. That's okay. We can disagree. We can rank it. Like that article that we just read about Laura Steele, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. The only reason I'm not giving it 10 is because there's nothing in the about section. Now, if Mr. Lucas gets back to us, then I'll give him a full 10 out of 10. How about that? I can't be any nicer than that. I really like this filter that I've got going right now. And for those of you who want to do this kind of thing where you talk incessantly into a microphone all by yourself, I kind of like it. It's fun. It meets one of my quirky, manic-y, cannabis-induced states of mind. It's fun for me. It appeals to me. And if you want to do it too, I'm gonna just pull up a screen here so you can watch. So you can watch what I'm doing. I'm gonna say display capture 2. All right, there's display capture 2. I don't think this is gonna help, but I was gonna try to show you. Oh, I know what I can do. We're learning as we go, people. Display capture 2 is just messing it up, so I'm going to keep you on there, and then I'm going to drag this filter over to regular display. How about them apples? All right. So this is the wrong one. So I'm going to try another one. I'm going to say filter for cam 2. This is all in a program called OBS, people. I think it's Open Broadcasting System or Source. I'm not even sure what it means. OBS, it's free. You download it. So now you can see what I have going here. I have a chroma key set to a custom color, which is white. Similarity of 1, smoothness of 57. You can copy these settings if you want. But I also, at the same time, and I think Zud did this, we've got sharpness on. Sharpen is on it at 1, which would be 100 in this case. So if you reduce sharpness, you'll see what happens. You kind of lose your edges. Although you can't really see it, can you? All right, so it doesn't look like sharpen does much, but so those are my settings to get this effect. This is daylight. I do have a stage light right here, kind of hitting the right side of my face. I find daylight works better for this trick. So now I can use whatever's on my monitor and I can put him in the window. So that's how I put Bigfoot in the window, using a Luma key during daylight. For those of you who want to play around with this stuff at home. And here I'll pull up the Luma key and I'll show you when I mess with it what it looks like. So you go to your video, your settings. You can see which ones are on. In this case, cam 1's got a Luma key. So if I play around with the intensity on the Luma key, I can make Coffee by Design Bigfoot come into the room, and then I can beam him or her back out of the room. And if I mess with this one, that softens it up a little. Okay. I see. Very nice. All right, so that's the Luma key, people. Have fun with that. This is the Brother Seamus show. I forgot to put my name on the screen for a few minutes, and I apologize. Someday somebody will call. It'll be fun. We'll talk. We can talk about Bigfoot. We can talk about information democracy. We can talk about literacy. Media literacy is kind of what we're getting into today. We also talk about making Fruity Loops and vocal loops. It's always fun. I don't want to just talk politics, and I don't want to just try to do just comedy entertainment either. So I like to do more. I like to distract myself with a lot of things. That's pretty much what this comes down to. I enjoy distracting myself. I do enjoy making the beats too, so I'm going to take a short break. You think about picking up that smart device you've got and holding it. I think now to open smartphones, you have to, I believe you have to use the tap function, and I think you have to hold it right up to your head like this. This is what I read on the internet. So open your phone and call us at 509-676-6032 and ask us a nice question, because us, why am I saying the royal us, right? We do have a lot of fun here, and we've got some musicians who are starting to contribute their work. Today's music was produced by yours truly, and Coffee by Design Bigfoot is here dancing. That's a Coffee by Design hoodie. They're from Portland, Maine, and my brother is a big fan. I am not getting paid by CBD Coffee by Design, and I do not know, I have no idea if they will actually infuse coffee with CBD. They should. They should infuse it. Because, CBD, right? I know. It's stupid. But CBD coffee, I would try it. I'm in the camp, this is just an opinion, because there's not a lot known about CBD and even cannabis. We're learning more all the time. I'm of the opinion that it doesn't really do much without the THC. That's another topic we could certainly discuss, people, if you were so inclined. I smoked an entire CBD joint. I smoked an entire joint, and I couldn't feel a thing. I mean, honest engine. I could not. Oh, I shouldn't say that. That's kind of racist, isn't it? I didn't feel a thing. Not one little tiny bit. That could just be me and my chemistry, though, right? But I did read an interesting article about the idea that that the THC is an activator for the CBD, that they work together. I believe the chemistry people, the physiology people call it a entourage effect. And I think that's a good way to think of it. The trick is you can't be high all the time. I mean, some people are. It doesn't hurt you. Well, maybe it does. Who knows? But a lot of people can't be high all the time. So it'd be nice if they could take the CBD out and have it work. And I'm guessing a lot of you feel it does work, and maybe it does work for certain people who maybe have a different kinds of receptors in the brain, because that often seems to be the differences in receptors in your brain is often, I think, the culprit in many things, in many differences, because we absorb things differently, we process things differently. It's the Brother Seamus Show, 509-676-6032. Today's show is about media literacy. And now I'm just kind of goofing off to try to remember what stuff I forgot to include in today's show. And I think one thing I forgot was where you can buy some cool t-shirts and support us. There's a little place called Humans for Democracy. It's over there on Bonfire. So you would just type in bonfire.com/Humans for Democracy, or just Google that, or better yet, subscribe to us on YouTube. And in the description of today's broadcast, in the description right down there, right, there's a link to this website where you can buy cool t-shirts that say, we only have 2 right now. They say, "Immigrants make great Americans." And you get all these different colors. Let's look at a different color. I kind of like the red myself. So it's a real nice shirt, all different styles and types of material. And we believe immigrants do make great Americans. We are not anti-American in any way. We just appreciate the fact that all Americans, unless you're indigenous, you came from somewhere else, bro. So we were all immigrants. Some of us were forced here against our will. We also have Be an Anti-Racist t-shirts with a nice heart. I'm going to check the green on this one. Be an Anti-Racist. You can get these at bonfire.com/Humans for Democracy, or click the link in today's broadcast. Scoozy. I'm fighting off a little bit of a cold. Luckily, it's not the nastiest cold. It's not one of them. It's not one of those COVID colds. I tested my snot a couple times. I don't like doing the testing, but I do it because I think it's good to know. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of knowledge, people. Don't get too upset. Go to Humans for Democracy and buy a t-shirt for Cry Pete. Now you might notice on the Humans for Democracy page, you'll see a little yard sign here that says fossil fuels are killing us, which I think is also true. If you want that yard sign, there's another place you can go called Kick-Ass Yard Signs. You can find another version of Immigrants Make Great Americans here, an actual yard sign. A lot of stuff about masks and vaccines that might piss you off, and I apologize for that, but that's just what I think. I was going to show you fossil fuels are killing us yard sign, but it's not at Kick-Ass Yard Signs. I am just lying, but Science Matters is here. Nice Science Matters t-shirt. Even if you don't agree with everything I say, you might agree with the fact that science matters, and we probably should agree on a shared reality that we come to by using the scientific method. That's pretty much what court is, right? That's why this claim of voter fraud couldn't go forward. In a sense, what the court system demands is a form of scientific evidence. They don't call it science, but it's trying to be scientific. It's trying to say, okay, you're accusing these two lovely women of some kind of ballot fraud down in Georgia. I'm not going to say their names because they've had enough abuse. But let's say you're accusing these two lovely women of something. You have to prove it, man. And they never proved it. Over 60 times they tried, they didn't prove it. So we got to stick with science, people. Otherwise, what I think is happening is I'm not mad at people for believing it. I'm mad at the people that intentionally are making them believe it, even though they know it's false. And it's bad for the country, and it's bad for them. So that's what the Brother Seamus show is preaching about. I don't blame everybody for having fixed false beliefs. That's what a delusion is, right? A delusion is a fixed false belief. And I think it's because of these mofos right here. Facebook, and I pick on Facebook, but social media in general. So that's my message. I'm a preacher. Sometimes I'm a teacher. Sometimes I just want to sit in the bleachers. And I make my own beats, about 100 beats per minute. That's my zone. And Bigfoot is a regular guest on this program. Today it was Portland, Maine, Bigfoot, which is nice. Portland, Maine, Bigfoot came down, busted some moves, which I always appreciate. All right, so Facebook is a giant liar machine. That's my opinion. More important than that, more important than slinging the mud, that line on top, at Facebook, you're not a customer, you're the product. Now, if you read my sermon from today, I reiterate that idea, and I want that to be the idea that sticks with you, so you understand what they're doing is they're taking as much information about you as they can get. And they're building, they basically, there's not a single person studying you as an individual, but the algorithm, the computer learning model is studying you. They watch how long you look at certain things. They can then sell that to advertisers, and it may not seem like a big deal, but if you can say to an advertiser, hey, you don't have to pay to advertise your product to people that won't buy it. We can tell by how people react, not for sure whether they'll buy it, but we can target people that are much more likely to buy it. So that's how they make their money. Well, what if I want you to buy something that's false? I can use that same algorithm because they don't know, Facebook doesn't know what I'm selling. They don't know if I'm a good person or a bad person. What they do know is that I'm paying them money, and I say, for example, I want only Trump voters to see a certain ad. Now, since we already know you're Trump voters, I can bombard you again and again and again with a certain ad. Now, you could argue, and you'd be right, it could happen on the other side too. You could target just Biden voters and try to warp their minds. You could. So what do you rely on in that case? Well, we have to stop Facebook from being able to do that to either side. All right? You shouldn't be able to lie to people, pay for it to have it distributed to certain people that they know are vulnerable to the lie. So that's what today's show is about. Now, it just so happens that right now, of course, there's disinformation on the left, but the disinformation on the right, it just so happens to be at this particular moment, is becoming more violent. And at a certain point, you have to say, after 60 attempts to prove voter fraud, you have to give up at some point and say, well, there just isn't any evidence. And all of his own people agree. But Facebook keeps pushing that. Until that stops, until there's no more targeted advertising by these giant tech companies. Facebook's now valued at over $1 trillion. $1 trillion, people. And if you're just joining us, I always make my own vocal loops for the show. And I use Fruity Loops. I'm just using the trial version, but I recommend it. It's a lovely program.
3, 4.
Oh, I just learned a good trick. You double click and the image gets bigger. How about that?
2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1.
Media literacy matters. You know what I think I'll do? I'll take the link from this radio interview.
3.
Ellen is her name. I'm going to put that link in
2 and a 3 and a 4.
today's broadcast.
That's right.
I'll put it right at the top too, so you can listen to what she had to say.
2.
You can review this
3,
episode if you want.
1.
I wasted a lot of time today, and I'm kind of sort of
4.
secretly proud of that.
2.
Probably doesn't make for a very good show. I've had 1 view,
1.
no callers today, people. 0 zilch.
4. 1.
but that is okay. So the link to that article, I better label it audio interview. Oh, my coffee smells so good right now, people. Don't you just love the smell of coffee?
3
It's so good.
and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Wow,
That's right.
here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
All right, now we got it
3,
saved.
4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And a two.
Let's see. I kind of want to play some more of that.
It was exhausting, but I was
4 and
exhilarated.
2
It
and
was
3 and
fascinating. It was
That's right.
one of the most interesting things that probably will ever happen in my life, and it was such an honor to be part of it. They really built us up and made us feel like important we were.
4.
And it felt like I'm doing a service to my country. I'm doing a service to this court.
3.
And it was like being part of a made-for-TV movie.
1,
But the stress
3,
built and built and built. The sleep got less and less and less.
3.
And
4
it was
and
exhausting.
1 and a 2
You
and a
know,
3 and a 4
I also
and
was
a 1
working
and a 2
one
and a
weekend
3
day
and a
every
4
week.
and a 1
So I
and a
only
2
had one day off, which
and a 1
clearly was
and a 2
not
and a
good.
3.
And you couldn't get away with it. Again, as I mentioned, you could not talk to anybody about what you were going through. You couldn't discuss it with anybody you knew. So you're living inside your head. The whole thing is in your head, and you can't get away from it. But that's not to say I was excited to get up every day and go to court.
Were you not allowed to talk to fellow jurors?
Right. We could not talk about the case until it was handed to us in deliberation. So for 5 weeks, we had 11 people, and we all got, we all made friends and got close with each other. We could talk about anything in our lives in the world, but not about the most important thing that we were sharing as a group. We could not talk about it at all until they handed us the case.
What about pay?
There was pay. If you work full-time, your employer could decide, you were being paid by your job, but your employer could decide whether you had to hand over the money they were giving you outside of the $7 we got for transportation. I, as now a part-time worker, was able to keep the money that they gave me. I mean, do you want to know the amount?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when you're on a federal jury, for the first 10 days, you get $50 a day plus the $7 in transportation. After 10 days, you get $60 a day plus the $7 for transportation. But I read in the fine print, after you get $600, then they'll start taking taxes out. And the first check didn't come until like 5 weeks in. They only cut checks like once a month. So that's the pay.
How much did you know about the defendants? In other words, there is a trial going on right now, the Proud Boys trial, and the defendants are in jail. Did you have any question as to whether or not the defendants were in jail in your Oath Keepers trial?
I didn't know. I somehow assumed they weren't, but I had no idea. I mean, that wasn't told to us, so.
I was in the room part of the time, and they weren't in jail, and therefore there were no marshals except one security marshal in the courtroom. In the other courtroom of Proud Boys, there's probably 4 or 5 marshals that are in and around the defendants.
Right, so I assumed they weren't. There were no signs that they were, so.
How far away did they sit from you?
I'm not good with feet, but the jury had, well, first of all, you have to know that there were 4 prosecutors plus 2 like media tech assistants at a table right in front of us. And then the 6 defendants had 9 lawyers, and some days they had assistants to the 9 lawyers. So it was huge, but it's all the way across the room were the defendants as far as they could get them from us. The prosecutors right in front of us. But, you know, you think of a trial, you usually have a defendant and a lawyer or two. We had 9 defense lawyers, 6 on the prosecution team, and 6 defendants. So it was a crowd of people in front of us.
How much were you aware that some of the defense lawyers were paid for by the taxpayer?
I never knew that until you told me that yesterday. I actually, after the trial was over and we were allowed to talk to the jurors, commented to my fellow jurors, I can't imagine how much this is costing those defendants, because I know, you know, they were probably indicted a year ago. I said, who could afford this? I had no idea how these people could do it. And then you informed me that, which I don't understand. Why is the government paying for the defense lawyers? I don't understand.
Because the defendants say they don't have any money, and therefore the government spends $164 an hour per defense lawyer, and not all of them were paid by the government or the taxpayer. But and you don't know that unless you ask them. And I asked them individually, didn't get to all of them to find out. They're quite willing to tell you that. It's well known among the court system.
So you're thinking about it. The government is paying for the trial. The government's paying the judge. The government's paying the prosecution. The government's paying the defense lawyers. So the government's paying almost everything about it. But we were all really surprised that some of the defendants had 2 lawyers, and we could tell one seemed to be a really seasoned, educated, qualified lawyer, and then there would be these other lawyers like, is that person a friend of the defendant? Who is that?
Some of that went on, yeah.
And that's what we figured. We figured maybe they brought a hometown lawyer with them just to be. I didn't sense that 2 lawyers for a single defendant were a team. We're working, we came from the same place. We're like partners or something. So we were very confused.
Go back to the outside experience.
Yeah.
What time did you have to be at the court every day?
We were supposed to be there by 9:30 every morning. They told us to be there at 9:15, but we knew that we were really beginning at 9:30. However, almost every single day it was delayed getting us in there because of our legal arguments in the court every single day. But we were technically supposed to be there at 9:30 in the morning. And then Monday through Thursday, we were supposed to be done at 5. On Fridays, it was half a day, so we were supposed to be done by 12:30.
How often did you break during a day?
That was really good.
If you're just joining us, we're listening to an interview by a C-SPAN journalist with a juror who served on what sounds like a rather complicated trial for some of the Oath Keepers.
It was really good to get up, walk out,
And she said it was just overwhelming, the amount of information and what they had to process.
So much information.
Hey,
So
she said
it
it
was
again. I'll
morning
shut
break,
up.
lunch, and
Let me shut
afternoon
up.
break.
We're going to briefly interrupt this conversation and continue in a moment.
Who was the judge?
I'm my mind is going crazy right now.
Judge Mehta.
Mehta. I know. I was trying to. We always were concerned about how to pronounce it. It was Judge Mehta, but people thought that wasn't the right way to say it, so I was just making sure I was saying it the right way. Yeah. So Judge Mehta, who has been the judge on every Oath Keepers case, which I think is really smart.
And this was the 3rd Oath Keeper.
This was a 3rd Oath Keepers trial, but many of the defendants, as you know, took pleas, even way back last year.
Did you have any feeling about the judge? Did you meet the judge? Did he talk to you?
Only as far as meeting him, as soon as we were selected, he came to talk to us for 5 minutes, and then the trial started. But he was very kind. He was very personable when he met us, and then he came to thank us at the end. Very heartfelt, very emotional for what we had done. Those are the only 2 times we were ever able to talk to him. Other than you might pass him in the hallway and he'd say good morning, or something. That was the extent of the conversation. I thought he was really good. I thought he was very competent, even-keeled, fair, moved it along. I have utmost respect for him. I think he did it. He's a really good judge.
What did you think of the defense attorneys, the 9?
Mixed feelings. I thought a few of them were really pretty good. And then a few of them, my fellow jurors and I, we just could not believe it. We didn't know why they were there. They would try to do, one person would try to do a cross-exam and just went on and on and on forever and never got anywhere, and the judge eventually cut that person off. And there was a defense attorney who pulled a stunt that was just horrible, trying to break down his own client on the stand to prove some kind of point, and it was horrible, and jurors, including myself, were crying. That was just the worst part of it, but I think it's a mix. I don't think it was, 100% the greatest defense lawyers I've ever seen.
One of the issues before you ever came into the court as a jury, I saw when they went through the whole process of whether or not William Isaacs, who's a young man, about 24 years old.
He's 21.
From Florida.
Right.
And he is autistic. Tell us that story. And the judge and the prosecutors all went through whether or not he should be allowed to tell the jury that he has autism.
That was a theme throughout most of the trial. We came to find out later, actually during the trial, the judge said something about the hearing we had about autism. So I knew there had been a hearing before the trial started about whether to allow this just by that comment from the judge. From the moment that his defense attorney did his opening statement, we knew that autism was going to be everything about the defense case. And the young man who was 21 was sitting there with headphones on. And so his defense team wanted to explain that right away.
Why the headphones?
We didn't know that why until, actually he probably did tell us in the opening. In order to be able to filter out the excess noise in a room and just hear someone speaking, he was listening to white noise in his headphones, and it would filter out everything except the main audio that you're hearing. Otherwise, he'd be distracted by every sound in the room, and that's what we were told. So he was wearing his headsets the entire time that during the trial. What frustrates us now, looking back, is that we spent 2 whole days of our lives learning everything you could possibly imagine about autism from 2 expert witnesses, one for each side, and we came to learn in our jury instructions to disregard anything about autism. Autism is not a defense in federal criminal law. And all of us are like, why did we have to go through this? Plus, they put only 3 or 4 of the defendants took the stand. 4. William Isaacs was one of them. And it went on for a whole day watching this poor young man be basically tortured by this, mostly by his own defense lawyer. And it was the most traumatic part of the trial, and it meant nothing to our deliberations. We were not allowed to consider it. So I know that the judge had a hearing about it. I know there were certain rules about what they could talk about, because every time the defense lawyer kept asking a question that wasn't allowed, the judge slammed him. We talked about that. You can't ask that. And I, to this day, wonder why we had to waste 2 days on something that didn't matter to our decision making.
What happened to the decision on William Isaacs in the case?
William Isaacs was convicted of every single charge. He was charged with more offenses than anyone. He was convicted of every single one of them. Obviously, the defense tried to make us sympathetic to his illness. We were very sympathetic to it. Of course we were. We're human beings. But I assume the judge will deal with that in sentencing. It's not our place to say, you didn't break this law because you are X or Y or have this illness or have this condition. That's not our place. Our place is to say whether you're guilty or not. It's the judge's job to decide how to handle it. Thank goodness that's not our job. But it was just a huge waste of time.
I have a list of a lot of the charges. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding.
Yes.
What does that mean to you when you started talking about it?
That was one of the easier ones. I mean, did they disrupt Congress? It was like, yes, next. These kind of charges also, I must tell you, some of the people in the jury did not understand what any of that meant, so we had to be like teaching people what that meant. But that was one of the easier charges for most of the defendants, not all of them. Did they disrupt Congress? Of course they did. But the big fight was, did the two people outside have anything to do with it who didn't go in the building? There was a big inside-outside fight throughout the entire deliberations. Did people outside do anything? Like, of course they did. But even though we had testimony from, you cannot believe, well, you probably saw a lot of them, the witnesses we had, Capitol Police, FBI, the architect of the Capitol's office, I mean, just on and on and on, experts, DC police, experts in every single aspect of what we needed to know. And, you know, they told us if anyone was on the Capitol grounds, in the building outside, Congress could not come back into session. Yet there was this huge dispute in our jury about that. Like, that's not true. Like, it was hard. But that was, to me, very simple. Did they disrupt Congress from doing its work? Yes.
Charges of preventing Congress from performing its duty.
Wait, didn't we just do that?
Well, they're two separate.
Oh, you mean count three. One of them was disrupting Congress from doing its work. The other one was disrupting members of Congress from being able to do their work. So to us, one was, did Congress stop? Yes. The other one was, were there our defendants going down the Senate hall and standing outside of Speaker Pelosi's suite, making the staff have to disappear and run, and Vice President Pence, who was upstairs, had to run because they were in the hallway right outside the Senate door or right outside Pelosi's suite. Yes, they disrupted individual members of Congress from being able to fulfill their duties. That's how we looked at it.
A woman named Connie Meggs was convicted. She was among the defendants. Were you aware of her husband, Kelly Meggs, had already been convicted of an Oath Keepers group? I mean, he was a leader.
Yes. Obviously, her husband's name came up like every second in the whole trial because he was the leader of the whole group of our defendants, except for Michael Green. So everyone knew of Kelly Meggs and that he was like a really high up person in the Oath Keepers group. I knew from before I even knew I was on this jury that someone of that name had been convicted. I knew Rhodes was, and I knew he was.
Stuart Rhodes.
Stuart Rhodes and him. I didn't know the names of every other Oath Keeper who was mentioned, and 25 of them were mentioned in our trial. I didn't know who any of them were.
Stuart Rhodes, by the way, for those who remember, had a patch over his eye. He's a Yale Law graduate and was the leader of the Oath Keepers.
Yep, and his trial was the biggest trial. He was the first to be tried, and Kelly Meggs was with him. I think that's why I knew Kelly Meggs' name. He was in the same trial.
And they haven't been sentenced.
I don't think so. I think I read somewhere that's May some of them are going to be sentenced, so nobody's been sentenced, but people who pled out have been sentenced.
They could get 20 years in prison. Did that impact you at all when you're talking among your jurists?
We didn't know what the sentences could be, nor did the judge allow us to consider the fact of what the sentences could be. In fact, we didn't even know while we were deliberating that the sixth count was a misdemeanor. We didn't even know that. We didn't know this will carry more jail time than that. That wasn't explained to us, nor were we allowed to consider that.
Were you allowed to look it up when you were home at night?
No. We couldn't do any research. We were told, you cannot do any research about anything. I mean, it was kind of, we could not come in and say, I found out last night that this charge has, that would not have been allowed.
Anybody explain to you why that was the case?
They wanted us just to consider the evidence and the crime, not like the repercussions for this human being of what they could get sentenced to, and is that too much? I can understand that.
Did you find during your personal conversations with the other jurors that they had gone home and looked up things?
Yeah, I know at one point when people were arguing to clear somebody that, if we're not 100% sure, how could we subject this person to a possible 20-year sentence? It was said once. I think some of us were aware of it, but I didn't know there were like 6 felonies and 1 misdemeanor in our case. I didn't know this one is 20 years, this one's 10, this is 5. I just know these are felonies, these are really bad. But I thought they were all felonies. I didn't know one of them was even a misdemeanor, as I said.
There's a 72-year-old man named Benny and his wife Sandra.
Yes.
She's 63, I believe. What happened to them? They're from near Cincinnati, Ohio.
It is like the tragedy, besides William Isaacs, the young man with autism. I mean, the Parkers, it's just such a heartbreaking story, in a way. I don't know how far you want me to go with this, but he wanted to be he was a former, not National Guard, like Ohio State Guard, what's it called? It's not a...
We're listening to an interview from, I want to say a couple weeks ago. C-SPAN journalist interviewing a woman who was a juror in the trial. It was I think a 6-person trial. Laura Steele was on trial. And we're hearing the audio that was posted online by Brian Lamb. The article was written by Mr. Guy Lucas. We're going to come back to that. This is too long of an interview to do today. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark, and my Catholic guilt kicks in if I go beyond 2 hours, because I start to feel like, my God, you could have done this whole show in 20 minutes, man. And it's true. It's true. But guess what? You get to hear beats while you're here. You get to hear homemade, fresh, cooked beats. You get a little bit of a media literacy lesson. I'm not the pinnacle of media literacy, but there are ways of snooping about. You gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. And a 2. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Gotta snoop about. You gotta snoop about. Here we go. You gotta snoop about. 1, 2. So, 3. When you're out there snooping about on the interwebs, really do your research. Don't just say you're doing your research. Really snoop about. Maybe send out an email or call somebody's voicemail and just say, hey, I'm just trying to get a handle on this case. That interview with the juror is fascinating, and I want to listen to it all. And I probably will. But I'm gonna let y'all go so you can go do your homework, and you can go to bonfire.com and buy a t-shirt from Humans for Democracy. They sponsor our show and do our t-shirts for us. The link is down there. You can link to that audio. Let's make sure we don't ever lose C-SPAN. We're already losing cable access TV stations. There's a lot of reasons for it, but one reason for it is greed. So don't lose your local access or your, C-SPAN access. All the accesses. Don't lose them. People need non-profit media. It's not socialism. It's just sharing. It's just common sense. Do you really want to have all the media owned by profit-seeking corporations who may or may not give a shit about what damage they're causing? I'm looking at you, little Marky Z. You can't go around tracking people with that much data and then selling that to malicious advertisers. You must be held accountable for that civilly. You better hold yourself accountable, because I think your day is coming, brah. I think your day is coming. I'm not suggesting that anybody do anything rash. I'm just saying the legal system is going to start to realize that when you're tricking 21-year-old boys with autism into joining the Oath Keepers, that yes, Facebook, you're culpable in that. It's not all your fault. He's an adult man. He made his choices. I'd be curious to hear from his family. Did they try to stop him? There's a 21-year-old boy. He's autistic. He was sentenced. I don't know how much time he got. We'll talk about it more later. But the point is this. Facebook targets people who don't always know that they're being lied to. And it's a terrible harm from a product. And for some reason, we're just like, ooh, it's not their fault. Mark Easy's argument is, well, I didn't make up the bullshit that's harming them. No, you didn't, but you took money to spread it around. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. 3. Yes, you did. 1. Yes, you did. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Gotta snoop about. You gotta snoop about. Here we go. You gotta snoop about. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yes, you did. 1. Yes, you did. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. That's right. 1. That's right. 2. That's right. 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Gotta snoop about. You gotta snoop about. Here we go. You gotta snoop about. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yes, you did. 1. Yes, you did. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's right. 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. Gotta snoop about. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Gotta snoop about. You gotta snoop about. Here we go. You gotta snoop about. 1. Gotta snoop about. 2, 3. Gotta snoop about. 4. And about. And about. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yes, you did. 1. Yes, you did. That's right.